Namaskar, welcome. I'm Ashok Vyas, and this is reading of Swami Shri Ishwarananda Giriji Maharaj's book, God the Mother, Paradevta, that is also the name. So today I found something new there by, we will be reading it together literally. So you will also see what I'm reading, and if you want to read by keeping me on mute, that also would be possible. Yes. How is that happening? Let me show you. So here is the book that you see on the screen, and but I also want to be visible. Now, how both things can happen? That can happen like this. Okay. Now, this book we will be reading together. It was actually published way back in 1981. Paradevta, God the Mother, Swami Ishwarananda Giri. It was published by Samvit Sadhana in Mount Abu, Rajasthan, India, and 1981 was the year when it was priced 10 rupees. The printer's name also you saw, and it was dedicated to Rani Devi Anasuya, and other forms of the Divine Mother who nourished my soul and who continue to nourish it. I dedicate this volume signed by Ishwarananda Giri. And contents of the book will have introduction, Mother's Throne, the Lord's Inner Court, Awakening, Mother's Side Glance, Mother's Universal Form, Ardent Devotee's Prayer to Mother, and there are other names of these chapters. Chapter 1 is Paradevata, which we will be reading hopefully today. Then Atma Devata, Yoga Devata, Bhava Devata, and Pratyaksha Devata. And the book concludes with Pralapa Stuti. The bow symbol points to the creation of an internal tension which propels the missile of sense power and projects the sense of externality. Hence, all this is Pandan Matra, merely the pulsation of that conscious principle, our beloved mother. And in 1981, the other books which were already published by Swamiji were Bird Songs, Portrait of Guru, Vedanta and Vision of Life, Gita Upasana, and Introduction to the Gita in Samvit Light. And one book was What is Samvit Sadhana? And let's read publisher's note. More than a decade ago, Puja Sri Swamiji delivered a series of lectures on selected verses from Sri Shankara's Devibhujanga-stotram at the Ahemedabad residence of Shrimati Mrinalini Sarabhai. At her request, the Sadhana started working on her tape recordings of those talks to give them a book form. The work was hampered and delayed for various reasons and ultimately abandoned. Therefore, it is with a special feeling of fulfillment and intense awareness of the marvelous, inscrutable working of Samvit that we celebrate here the birth of that book conceived so long ago. In editing the original talks, some matter has been drawn from subsequent talks on the same subject delivered at Bangalore and Jodhpur. Some new paragraphs have been added to give a completeness. A selection of the shlokas from Devibhujangam under the title Pralapa Stuti, as Sri Shankara himself names it in the last shloka of the stotra, is also given along with a free translation to enable the upasaka to catch and retain the total spirit of the poem, in whose background the 5 chapters of this book stand out and gain their characteristics. The 5 shlokas of the present work have been selected with a view to present 5 important approaches to the Divine Mother, Upasana, in keeping with the limited scope of this slender volume. This is our first publication on the Devi concept, and we hope Samvit readers will welcome it as with much with as much appreciation as was evoked by our first publication of the Gita last year. The Samvit Vikas Kendra of Bangalore, which undertook the burden of bringing out Gitopasana, insisted on doing the same for this book also. The Sadhana appreciates the Kendra's spirit of Samvita Seva and expresses its deep gratitude to all the members of the Bangalore Kendra and to other friends in Ahmedabad who worked hard to salvage this manuscript from oblivion and give it a fitting form. An initial donation of Shrimati Mrinalini Sarabhai and further collections made by The Bangalore Kendra have covered the expenses for this publication. The Phoenix Printing Company Private Limited has once again, as in the case of Gito Pasna, extended to us its efficient services and cordial cooperation. To all these summit friends and sadhakas, the sadhana and wishes to express its thankfulness. Paradevta, God, the Mother. Dhyanam, पद्मरागप्रतीकाशां त्रिनेत्रां चन्द्रशेखरां पाशाङ्कुशो पुष्पशरान् ददन्तीं पुण्ड्रचापकं पूर्णतारुण्यलावण्य तरङ्गितकलेवरां ब्रह्मसंवेत्स्वरूपां तां भजामि परदेवताम्. Introduction. The concept of God as mother has its seeds in almost all the ancient scriptures of the world. But we say that nowhere was it so eloquently expressed as in India, um, where it was fully developed and vigorously adopted as an important form of spiritual practice. More than 3,000 years ago, the Vedas spoke of the highest principle of godhood as Mahimatta, the great mother, and as walk or speech that is in the supreme space, Parame Vyoman. There are also in the Vedas profuse references to the divine cosmic power as Devamata and Aditi. The hymns in praise of Saraswati, the river, and Ushas, the dawn, are sung with fervor and depth of understanding that raise these visible manifestations to the level of cosmic principles and make them symbols of the divine motherhood. Even on the human level, the mother's love is the introduction to life, the first touch of divinity bestowed on man, and it stirs in him the deepest feelings that penetrate the ground of his being. Even so, the motherhood of God becomes the main root for the tree of cosmic life, the main conduit for the sap of life sustaining cosmic evolution in its journey to perfection. The Vedic seers realized this and gave to the metaphysical concept of power, Shakti, a symbolic feminine form for purpose of adoration and meditation and other practices of yoga and upasana. So it is not surprising that a large number of spiritual masters belonging to strict Advaita tradition composed soul thrilling hymns to the Divine Mother. The richness of the mother theme appeals to all, the layman and the initiated alike. It may be because motherhood achieves the rare combination of power and compassion, eminence with intimacy, the sternness of a guide with the tenderness of a lover. Therefore, everyone, even the weak and the denigrate, can look up to this presence with hopes of being accepted, along with the great luminaries of the spiritual firmament who are also propitiating the mother. Sri Neelkantha Dikshit, grandson of the illustrious Appaya Dikshit, expresses this idea in a beautiful poem, Brahmesha Keshava Mukher Bahubhi Kumarahi Parayayatah Parigrahita Vimuktadesham Utasangamamba Tava Dasyai Me Sadatvam Matra Priyam Kila Jadam Sutama Mananti. Mother, the gods headed by Brahma, Ishan, Keshava are before you as your own sons and are in turn taken into your lap and fondled, fed, and guided to their respective duties. Mother, when will you grant me also the divine lap of yours? Unabashed, I also wait for my turn because the sages tell us that mother administers an extra dose of affectionate attention to the handicapped child. Similarly, the immortal line of Devi Kshamapana Stuti Kuputro Jayeta Kvachidapi Kumata Nabhavati has been sung through the ages and even today when which sensitive heart has not been touched and moved on hearing it. The Shakta Agamas displays God's motherhood in innumerable forms, and each form has multiple moods, and each mood many modes of worship. That is how the Tantra aspect of Agamas became so vast and intricate, so confusing and apparently contradictory. At the same time, amazingly, the Agamas managed to connect each mode of worship very precisely through a particular clear cut philosophical approach to that very same supreme Advaita reality expounded in Vedanta. Each of such modes of worship, according to Agamas, is a Vidya. The present work under consideration belongs to the famous Sri Vidya tradition, which for many reasons was chosen by Acharya Shankar Bhagavad as one of the many items in his scheme of for regenerating Hindu religious culture in the post-Buddhistic period. Shankara is acclaimed as Samta Sthapanacharya, the master who established the six Shanmat Sthapanacharya, the master who established the six systems of Hindu religion, namely Shaiv, Shakt, Saur, Ganapatya, Kaumarya, and Vaishnava. How these systems filtered through the upheavals of the Puranic age and settled into everyday life of people is an interesting study for the historian. To this day, from the north to the south of India, we find these sediments in the national structure almost layer by layer, and in the same order mentioned above. The first two systems, which may be considered as one since they refer to the primordial, inseparable pair, Shiva and Shakti, are the earliest and the most pervasive. Hence, Acharya Shankar in his Stotra literature leans heavily on these two aspects of the divine. His Shivananda Lahiri and Saundarya Lahiri are very well known. The latter is a profound work of art and erudition and held in high esteem by the Sri Vidya school of mother worship. In a less technical vein, Sri Shankaracharya sang many other small songs of Sri, of which Devi Bhujanga and Gauri Dashakam are highly esteemed. In the present work, we propose to dwell upon a few shlokas of the former. This is an adoration of the divine motherhood, variously called Lalita, Rajarajeshwari, Kameshwari, Tripura Sundari, and so on. All these names have deep philosophical implications, signifying Parabrahma or the ultimate basis of all universal phenomena. Therefore, to avoid these names being mistaken for certain other deities of the same nomenclature, they are very often qualified as Mahatripura Sundari, Lalita Parameshwari, etc. For a clear understanding of the significance of such terms, one has to study the works of the Tripura school of Tantras. We are not going to deal with that. All the same, we will be referring to them for the interpretations of the mudras and certain technical terms used in the work. Our attention here is directed chiefly to the deep emotion and the underlying grand awareness that suffuse Sri Shankara's heart and come cascading as mellifluous music in these verses that the emotional mood dominates. The whole stotra is clear from the concluding verse. Iti prema bharena kinchin mayoktam na buddhvaiva tattvam madhyam twadiyam vinodaya balasya morkhyam hi mata stadetat pralapa stutim me grahana. Mother, thus I have spoken something about you without even knowing you truly and fully. It is more an unburdening of my love than an exposition of your nature. Therefore, accept this to amuse yourself as the foolish prattle of a child. We can do no better than to imagine or imitate, in however meager a measure as possible, the spirit of utter humility and deep devotion set forth by Sri Shankara. And then alone will it be possible to enter into the meaning of the following verses. There is a story tradition which claims that Sri Shankara was the main inspiration behind the creation of the holy city of Kanchipuram, and that he made that the center of his spiritual administration. He was deeply attached to the shrine of Kameshwari, which to this day keeps alive the principles of Sri Vidya. In the Devi Bhujanga, Sri Shankara covers the entire gamut of sadhana in 27 shlokas that are held in luminous thought pattern like the 27 nakshatras of our galaxy. Out of these expanse, we select a few beacons to guide ourselves in meditation. So that was introduction of the book, which is by Swami Shri Ishwarananda Giriji Maharaj, and the book is called Paradevta. First chapter we will begin in the series, and here as we conclude, once again accept thanks, as well as I extend my pranams to Swamiji. Swamiji is not with us in the physical form, but he is always there in spirit with us, especially felt by Samit Sadhakas. And as this reading is happening right before Navaratri, so this will set the mood to get in tune to invoking Mother in our heart. So next video will be with Paradevta, Mother's throne. I also want to repeat thanks to Samit Sadhakas and their dedication. Uh, there is a website from where I picked up this PDF form. You may also download and read. That is Samvit Samvad is the name. With that, once again, let me come to the full screen to thank you. Yay! So, Namaskar, Jai Shankar, स्वामी जी महाराज की जय, अरुदय मात की जय, ओम नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव.